Can you read this letter? It's very important.
The little girl's final wish shattered the CEO's walls. The city was alive with Monday morning noise, horns, footsteps, and hurried conversations tangled in the chill of early sunlight. From the 42nd floor of the Kingsley Systems Tower in Manhattan, the world looked orderly, almost silent. All the chaos of life below was reduced to tiny movements beyond spotless glass. Nolan Carter stood at the edge of his office, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a black mug he never drank from. 31 years old, tailored gray suit, jet black hair, neatly cut, eyes sharp as the skyline he stared at. There was a reason people said he ran his company the way a surgeon holds a scalpel, clean, precise, and without emotion. He was not heartless, he simply had no time for illusions. Years in business had taught him one truth: everyone wanted something. Behind every smile was an angle, behind every handshake, a strategy. So he kept his world controlled. Walls of glass, yes, but the emotional kind were thicker. That morning, his routine had been as predictable as always: market updates, 2 investor calls, and a quiet breakfast alone. Then his office phone lit up with a direct call from the lobby, something that almost never happened. At that very moment, downstairs in the marble lobby, a small figure stepped through the revolving glass doors. She was 5 years old. Her name was Aubrey. Her dress was soft pink with a ribbon at the waist. She wore white shoes, a little scuffed, and carried a wrinkled envelope held close to her chest with both hands. Her dark brown hair, curled slightly at the ends, bounced with each step. She paused in front of the gleaming front desk, wide eyes scanning the towering walls of glass and metal. The receptionist, Jenna, looked up from her monitor and blinked in confusion. "Hi there. Are you lost?" Jenna asked gently, leaning over the counter. Aubrey shook her head. "No, ma'am." Her voice was small but steady. She stepped forward, raised the letter, and said with quiet determination, "Please, ma'am, can you give this to the most important man in this building? Mommy says it's very important." Jenna hesitated, eyes falling to the envelope. The paper was wrinkled, almost soft with wear, but the handwriting was elegant and purposeful. To Mr. Nolan Carter, urgent and personal. Her heart skipped. "Do you know who Mr. Carter is?" Jenna asked carefully. Aubrey nodded. "He's the man Mommy told me to find." The receptionist had handled countless unusual requests in her 7 years here. She had turned away media, fortune seekers, even a senator's aide once. But this child, standing in her pink dress with those wide, serious eyes, she was different. There was something in Aubrey's gaze that made Jenna's throat tighten. Not just innocence, but something deeper, an old sadness that did not belong in a child's face. A mix of fear and hope. The kind of look that made you forget policies and procedures. Jenna looked around. No security alert, no adult in sight, no hidden camera crew. Just one child, one letter, and something fragile in the air that felt like it might shatter if ignored. She picked up the phone. The internal line blinked green. She pressed it. "Mr. Carter's office." There was a brief pause before she spoke. "Claire, it's Jenna at reception. I know this is against protocol, but there's a little girl here. She came alone. She has a letter for Mr. Carter. Says her mom sent her." Another pause. Then a quiet voice said, "Is it addressed?" Jenna looked again at the envelope. "Yes, very clearly. It says, 'To Mr. Nolan Carter, urgent and personal.'" Even through the phone, Jenna could feel the temperature shift. "Wait there," Claire said. "I'll tell him." Moments later, in his office high above, Nolan Carter turned from the glass. The world outside had not changed. But something small was moving toward him, and for reasons he could not name, he let it in. Claire stood just inside Nolan's office, her hands clasped in front of her, eyes steady. "There's a little girl in the lobby," she said quietly. Nolan did not look up from his screen. "Security will handle it." "She's not causing trouble," Claire said, voice more insistent. She came alone. She asked to speak to the most important man in the building. Now, Nolan glanced up. She brought a letter, Claire continued. It's addressed to you, urgent and personal. His brows drew together. I do not take walk-in letters, you know that. I do. But, Claire hesitated, then stepped forward. Sir, if you saw her eyes, you'd understand. That letter may not be about business, but it's someone's whole world. Nolan's jaw tensed. A long silence followed. Then, with a short sigh, he pushed back from his desk. Fine. 5 minutes. Downstairs, Aubrey waited quietly on the edge of the marble bench near the elevators, her envelope still clutched tightly in her hands. When the elevator doors opened and Claire stepped out, the girl looked up. He'll see you now, Claire said softly. Aubrey nodded, lips pressed into a thin line as she stood and walked beside the woman. The elevator ride was silent. Claire glanced at the girl a few times, but Aubrey kept her eyes forward, small hands resting on the envelope as if guarding something sacred. When they reached Nolan's office, Claire opened the door and motioned for her to enter alone. Nolan stood at his full height, tall and still, behind his massive desk. The room was quiet, filled with morning light pouring in from floor-to-ceiling windows. His face was unreadable. Aubrey stepped inside, each footstep small and careful on the polished floor. She stopped a few feet in front of his desk and looked up at the man everyone in the building whispered about. He studied her for a moment, the pink dress, the solemn brown eyes, the letter gripped so tightly her knuckles were white. She held it out, both hands trembling just a little. This is for you, she said softly, from my mommy. He took it. Aubrey's gaze dropped to the floor. Her voice grew even quieter. This is Mommy's final wish, she said. If you read it, maybe something good will happen before she goes to heaven. Nolan blinked. His throat tightened without warning. But he said nothing. He looked down at the envelope in his hand. The paper was soft and wrinkled from her grip, the handwriting on the front. Something about it tugged at a corner of his memory. He sat down slowly and opened the letter. Inside were 2 pages. The first bore a few smudges of blue ink. The lines were written in delicate, cursive strokes, unsteady but elegant. A few words had been crossed out and rewritten, as if the writer had struggled to keep her hand steady. If you're reading this, I'm dying. I tried to keep this secret because I thought it was kinder that way, but I realize now, truth matters more than comfort. I cannot leave this world without telling you the truth. Aubrey is your daughter. Nolan's hand froze mid-page. She has your laugh. She loves sunflowers. And sometimes when she's sleeping, I see your exact expression on her face. I never stopped loving you, Nolan. But I had to choose the quieter pain of silence rather than add more chaos to your world. The letter trembled in his hand. Signed, Lila Bennett. For a moment, Nolan could not breathe. Lila, a name that had not crossed his lips in 6 years, a girl with sunlit hair and ocean blue eyes, a woman who had once held his heart in her hands, and then disappeared without a goodbye. His first love. He looked up slowly. Across the room, Aubrey had wandered to a potted plant by the window. She was carefully inspecting its leaves, one hand brushing the edge of a branch. Her face glowed in the sunlight, unaware, untouched by the storm brewing behind him. Nolan stared at her, stunned. His heart slammed against his chest, as if waking from a 6-year coma. Walls he had built brick by brick, logic, distance, control, were suddenly no match for 5 quiet words from a little girl. Before she goes to heaven. Nolan stood at the window long after Aubrey had been gently led out of his office. The letter sat open on his desk, its final lines still echoing in his head. Aubrey is your daughter. The words didn't just surprise him, they threatened everything he thought he knew. He had not spoken or heard the name Lila Bennett in 6 years, but now it filled the room like perfume that had never truly faded. His mind traveled back, sharply, uncontrollably, to the last time he had seen her. They had been young and foolishly in love. 3 years together, she had been the only person who ever truly saw past the armor he wore. Lila, with the golden hair and eyes that laughed before her lips did. They had plans once, big ones, and then silence. He remembered the moment things shattered. A photo had arrived anonymously in his inbox. Lila, arms around a man Nolan did not recognize, her cheek close to his. No caption, no explanation, just the image. He never confronted her. He had looked at the picture, swallowed the jealousy, and decided she had chosen someone else. She didn't fight it when he pulled away. She simply left. No closure, no goodbye. He buried the pain, told himself it had just been another lesson in trust, and Lila vanished from his life like a chapter torn from a book. But now, this child, this soft-voiced little girl with solemn eyes and the same stubborn crease in her brow, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Could Lila be telling the truth? Or was this an elaborate story meant to manipulate him, his success, his money, his name? He needed to know. The next morning, he asked Claire to arrange a second meeting, with the girl, alone. No cameras, no press. Aubrey sat quietly on the sofa across from him, her legs too short to touch the floor, her shoes swinging slowly back and forth. Nolan cleared his throat. "What does your mommy do?" he asked. Aubrey didn't answer right away. Her eyes drifted to the tall window behind him, where sunlight spilled in across the floor. "She used to sing," she said softly, "all the time, but not anymore." "Why not?" "She's tired now," Aubrey replied. "She says it's hard to breathe sometimes, but she still hums when she brushes my hair." Nolan looked away for a moment. He had once watched Lila sing to a crowded park from a makeshift stage at a student festival. Her voice had been untrained but clear and full of emotion, like it belonged to someone twice her age. That same voice used to fill his dorm room late at night, humming quietly against his shoulder. He glanced back at the girl. She was now running her fingers across the coffee table, tracing patterns in the wood. Then she looked up at him. She smiled. It stopped him cold. That smile, tilted just slightly to one side, a tiny dimple appearing on her left cheek. His breath caught. He knew that smile. He had seen it in the mirror, in old photographs, in childhood portraits his mother used to frame with pride. It wasn't just Lila in this girl. It was him, too. Something inside Nolan shifted, subtle but irreversible. A wall cracking, a door opening. He excused himself calmly, but the moment he returned to his office, he picked up his private phone and called a medical contact. "I need a discreet paternity test," he said, "as soon as possible. No publicity, no records beyond mine." His voice was steady, but his hand shook slightly as he set the phone down. He looked again at the small handprint Aubrey had left on the glass tabletop. The truth was beginning to take shape, and the man who had stopped believing in feelings suddenly found himself chasing one. The hallways of Street Augustine Memorial Hospital were quiet in the late afternoon light. The smell of antiseptic lingered in the air, but it was the silence that struck Nolan most, so different from the constant hum of his office, the controlled chaos of boardrooms and numbers. He moved through the corridors with a calm exterior, but inside, something was tightening with every step. Room 412. He paused at the door, hand hovering over the handle. For a moment, he considered turning back. What could he possibly say after 6 years of silence, after walking away without ever asking why? He opened the door. The room was dim, but warm. Soft beeping came from the monitor beside the bed, and there, lying against white pillows, was her, Lila. Her once golden hair was shorter now, thinner. The treatment had taken its toll. Her skin was pale, her body fragile under the hospital blanket. But her eyes, those ocean blue eyes, were still the same. And when they met his, she smiled. It was the same, gentle, knowing smile he had seen 1,000 times in his memories. Nolan stood frozen. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. It was as if time itself refused to interrupt them. Finally, Lila's voice broke the silence, quiet and raspy but unmistakably hers. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. He stepped closer, his throat tightening. "I didn't know where else to go," he admitted. She tried to sit up, and he moved quickly to help her adjust the pillows. Their hands brushed. The contact was brief, but electric. "I'm sorry," she said, eyes filling. "I never wanted to keep her from you." "Then why did you?" he asked, not accusing, but aching. She looked down at her hands. "Because back then, you had your whole future ahead of you, and I didn't want to be the reason you stayed behind." "You think I wouldn't have chosen her? You?" His voice cracked. She looked up, tears slipping down her cheek. "I didn't want to break your life," she whispered. "I only wanted to protect hers." He sat beside her, the weight of it all pressing on his chest. "I didn't even know I wanted to be a father," he said softly, "until I saw her, and now I can't stop thinking about her." "She's everything I have," Lila said, "and now she has a chance to know you. I just didn't want her to lose you too." There was a long pause. Then, for the first time in years, Nolan let his guard fall completely. His shoulders trembled. His hand reached for hers, and when their fingers laced together, he lowered his head and cried. The tears came quietly at first, then deeper, heavier. Grief for the years lost, for the time they could not reclaim, for all the things never said. Lila didn't speak. She simply held his hand and watched him fall apart, because she had once loved the strongest version of him, but this broken version was real. When he finally looked up, his eyes were red but clear. "How much time?" he asked. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. "I'm going to fight for you," he said. "Both of you. You're not alone in this anymore." She reached up and touched his cheek, her fingers cool but gentle. "I never stopped loving you, Nolan," she said. His lips parted, but no words came, so he leaned in and pressed his forehead to hers, and they stayed like that, still and silent, together in the only way they could be. That night, Nolan made 3 phone calls. 1 to his private physician, 1 to the director of oncology at a top medical institute, and 1 to Claire, instructing her to clear his schedule indefinitely. He had made decisions every day of his life, ruthless, high-stakes decisions worth millions. But this time, it was different. This time, he was deciding what kind of man he truly wanted to be. Vanessa Blake was not the type of woman who let things slip past her unnoticed. She had built her entire career on control, of brand narratives, of headlines, of perception. As the PR director of Kingsley Systems and Nolan Carter's girlfriend of nearly 2 years, she had curated both his public image and his personal life with meticulous care. So when Nolan began changing, canceling meetings, stepping away from press engagements, avoiding her calls, she noticed. At first, she chalked it up to stress, but when he started disappearing during the day without explanation, and when Claire stopped offering answers that made sense, her instincts kicked in. She began asking questions. A few quiet inquiries told her enough. Nolan had been to a hospital more than once. He had personally requested medical transfers, signed off on large private payments, and had been seen leaving a cancer center 3 times in 1 week. Vanessa did what she always did when control began to slip. She took matters into her own hands. 1 call to a former contact in patient records, a forged signature, a fabricated report. Within 48 hours, she had what she wanted: Lila Bennett's name, a diagnosis, and enough room to spin a narrative. She leaked a story anonymously to 2 online gossip sites, rumors that a terminally ill ex-girlfriend of Nolan Carter's had suddenly reappeared, claiming to have his child. The headlines were cruel, seeded with phrases like gold digger, emotional manipulation, and a dying woman's last con. And then she waited. But Nolan didn't panic. He didn't call her for advice. He didn't even mention it. Instead, Vanessa walked into his office one evening to find him sitting quietly behind his desk, holding a printed photo in his hand. The photo. The one she had sent 6 years ago. The one that changed everything. It was Lila, mid-laugh, hugging a friend goodbye after a student recital, a friend who had come out as gay years later, a moment so innocent, so misinterpreted, and Vanessa had weaponized it. Nolan looked up at her, eyes sharper than she had ever seen them. "Why did you do it?" he asked. She blinked. "Do what?" He held up the photo. "You sent this. You knew what it would do to me." Vanessa scoffed lightly, but there was panic behind her eyes. "That was a long time ago. Did you know I loved her?" Nolan's voice was low, measured. "Really loved her." She laughed, bitter and unconvincing. "You think you did, but she would have ruined you. She didn't belong in your world. I was protecting you." "You weren't protecting me," he said. "You were protecting your position in my life." Her face hardened. "You would have thrown everything away for her." There it was. The truth. He stood. "And I still might." She stared at him, stunned. "You're done here, Vanessa." "Nolan." "You're fired," he said. "Effective immediately." "You can't." "I already have." Vanessa's voice broke. "You'll regret this." But Nolan didn't answer. He simply turned his back. The fallout was fast. The leaked documents were traced to an IP address tied to Vanessa's apartment. An internal investigation confirmed everything. News outlets picked up the story, and for the first time, Nolan Carter became the center of a scandal. But this time, he didn't hide behind a team of lawyers or publicists. He held a brief press conference, spoke directly, calmly. He confirmed Lila's condition, acknowledged the child, refused to comment further on personal matters, and made one thing clear: "I will not apologize for doing the right thing too late." Public sympathy shifted almost instantly. The man once labeled emotionless now stood as something else, human, honest, redeemable. Behind the scenes, Nolan's world had cracked. But from the fragments, something stronger was starting to emerge. The transfer happened quietly, with no press releases or public statements. Nolan made the arrangements in a single night, contacting one of the most advanced oncology centers in the country. Lila was moved into a private suite, her new room brighter, quieter, with large windows that let the sun pour in each morning. He covered every expense personally: doctors, treatment, transportation, everything. There were no strings attached, no conditions. When Lila tried to speak up about it, Nolan only said, "I should have been there a long time ago. Let me do this now." Aubrey came to visit every afternoon after preschool, her small backpack always stuffed with crayons and construction paper. In the waiting lounge just outside Lila's room, she would sit cross-legged on the floor, tongue poking out slightly as she colored her latest masterpiece. One day, a nurse bent down beside her and asked what she was drawing. "That's Mommy in the hospital bed," Aubrey explained, pointing to a stick figure with yellow hair and a big red heart over her chest. "And that's me with her." The nurse smiled. "And who's this?" Aubrey beamed. She had drawn a tall man in a gray suit with a blue cape. "That's Daddy," she said. "He's taking care of Mommy now. He's like a superhero, but in a suit." The nurse blinked quickly and smiled again, though her throat felt tight. Back in his office, far from cameras and shareholders, Nolan was doing something else, something no one had asked of him. Through a private legal team and a philanthropic advisor, he established a quiet initiative, the Final Wish Foundation. No press, no branding, just quiet, powerful action. The foundation's sole mission: to grant final wishes for terminally ill single mothers, letters delivered, last vacations taken, reunions arranged, secrets forgiven, dignity, peace, closure. It was named after a child's words. A single letter had changed his life. He wanted to give that gift to others. Then, one gray morning, the test results arrived. The envelope was thin, clinical. It sat on his desk for nearly half an hour before he opened it. His thumb hesitated at the seal. He didn't know what he was more afraid of, that the results would say Aubrey wasn't his, or that they would confirm she was. The paper inside said only what science could say. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. She was his. There was no doubt now, no question left unanswered. He drove to the hospital immediately. Aubrey was in the family lounge again, lying on her stomach, coloring a new picture. Lila was asleep upstairs. Nolan knelt down beside her without saying a word. She looked up at him, curious. "Are you okay?" Instead of answering, he held up the test results with one hand and opened his other arm. Aubrey hesitated for a second. Then she stood, walked into his embrace, and wrapped her arms tightly around his neck. He closed his eyes. The paper slipped from his fingers and drifted to the floor, unreadable now, irrelevant. He held her for a long time. Outside, the morning clouds parted. Sunlight streamed through the tall window, falling gently on Aubrey's brown hair, catching golden flecks that weren't visible before. It shone like a halo around her. In that moment, Nolan didn't feel like a CEO or a billionaire or a man trying to correct the past. He felt like a father, and for the first time in years, he didn't want to be anywhere else. The first signs of hope came quietly. Lila's color began to return. Her energy crept back in small waves, an appetite, a laugh, the strength to sit up on her own. The new treatment wasn't a miracle, but it was working. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. And for the first time in years, so was she. They moved her into temporary housing close to the hospital, and Nolan insisted on staying nearby. It started with visits, then late dinners. Eventually, he just stopped leaving. Mornings became a rhythm. Nolan stood at the stove in the small but sunlit kitchen, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. He wore an old college t-shirt and pajama pants, a sight no one in his corporate world would believe. Behind him, Lila sat at the breakfast bar, wrapped in a robe, hair beginning to grow back in soft golden wisps. At the kitchen table, Aubrey hunched over a coloring book, her tongue peeking out in concentration. "Mommy," she said without looking up, "can we keep Daddy?" Lila laughed, a real laugh, and Nolan nearly dropped the coffee pot. He turned around, feigning seriousness. "Well, that depends. I snore, I drink way too much coffee, and I do not know how to braid hair." Aubrey gave him a sly look. "That's okay. You can learn." Later that afternoon, they went to the park, the one Nolan and Lila used to visit during their college days. It had not changed much. Same winding path by the lake, same weathered bench beneath the willow tree. They brought a blanket, sandwiches, and a kite. Aubrey insisted on flying even though there was barely any wind. She ran in circles, laughing, while her parents watched from the bench. "I forgot what this felt like," Lila said quietly, her hand resting on Nolan's. "What?" he asked. She looked at him. Peace. Wholeness. He reached into his jacket pocket. "I didn't." She blinked as he dropped to one knee in front of her. There was no grand speech, no crowd, just them, in the place where it all began. He opened a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate ring, silver, with a simple stone. Engraved beneath it were words that shimmered when caught in the sun. "The final wish that brought us home." Lila's breath caught. "I can't promise perfect," Nolan said softly, "but I can promise every day and every night for both of you." Tears welled in her eyes. She nodded. "Yes, 1,000 times, yes." From across the grass, Aubrey screamed, "Mommy, Daddy, look, the kite's flying." The wind had finally picked up. The little pink kite danced above the trees. Lila laughed through her tears. Nolan pulled her into his arms. For the first time in a very long time, they felt like a family. Not perfect, but exactly where they were meant to be. The sun poured golden over the grass as balloons bobbed gently in the breeze, tied to picnic tables and candy-striped chairs. It was a perfect spring afternoon in the park, the kind that smelled like blooming flowers and felt like new beginnings. Today was Aubrey's 6th birthday. She wore a pink dress that twirled when she spun, the same shade as the frosting on her cupcakes. Her dark brown hair was pulled into 2 loose braids, ribbons fluttering behind her as she danced barefoot across the grass. Laughter bubbled all around her, children playing tag, chasing bubbles, squealing with joy as a magician pulled rabbits from hats. Music played softly from a nearby speaker, and a banner that read, "Happy Birthday, Aubrey," fluttered above the tables. Not far away, under a canopy of trees, Nolan and Lila stood side by side, fingers interlaced, watching their daughter spin in circles. Nolan wore no suit today, just jeans, a soft blue shirt, and a quiet smile that didn't look borrowed or guarded. It belonged to him now, to this life, to this moment. Lila, radiant in a white sundress and a straw hat, leaned gently against his shoulder. Her golden hair, now growing back in soft waves, caught the sunlight. She looked healthier, stronger. Hope clung to her the way illness once had. "You know," she said, watching Aubrey skip toward the cake table, "we missed 5 birthdays." "We'll never miss another," Nolan said, pulling her closer. She looked up at him. "Promise?" He kissed her forehead. "With everything I have." As the party reached its peak, Nolan lifted Aubrey onto his shoulders so she could see above the crowd. Her tiny hands clutched the balloons he'd just untangled for her, and her laughter rang out like a bell. "Best birthday ever," she shouted to the sky. As the sun began to set and guests trickled away, Aubrey stood at the edge of the park, her pink dress fluttering gently in the breeze. The sky turned soft orange behind her. That night, back at home, she stood at her bedroom window, staring out at the stars. The house was quiet. Her party hat still sat on the dresser. A paper crown Nolan had made her from cupcake wrappers leaned on the nightstand. She pressed her forehead to the glass, the soft hum of the city below, and whispered to the night, "Mommy said my final wish came true." She paused, smiling softly. "But I think it was her wish all along." She looked over her shoulder at the faint light coming from the hallway, where her parents were laughing softly in the kitchen. "And Daddy," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper, "well, his walls are gone now. He lets the light in, and that's where love lives." She turned off the lamp, crawled into bed, and curled beneath the covers, a smile still on her lips. Outside, the moon rose over the city, casting its glow over a home that had once been silent. Now, it was full of life and light. If this story touched your heart the way it touched ours, we invite you to take a quiet moment to reflect on the power of love, forgiveness, and second chances. Sometimes, it takes the innocence of a child and the courage of a final wish to break down the walls we build around ourselves. If you believe in stories that heal, that remind us of what truly matters, family, hope, and coming home, then you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that hype button to show your support for this story. And if you'd love to see more soul-stirring tales just like this one, subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories and join a growing community that believes in the beauty of storytelling that touches the heart. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep letting the light in.